We start.
Hello, I'm ready. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is also on. So, then, Cariad, you are the second time here.
Third time here, but second time as teacher.
Yes, you have been last year here as a student.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, was so nice.
And now you are teaching one of the you have been last year here as a student. Wonderful. And now you are teaching one.
Du brauchst so Ding oder so. Ja, hier. Du musst das Ding holen.
Nein, du, ich spreche, ich könnte es übersetzen. Alles gut. Du denkst an uns, okay, ich warte nicht auszudauern.
What's the issue?
They are discussing about the translation.
Yes, where is he? Where is the translator?
So, everything's going on. Everything's clear now with the translation. So, we start. Cariad is here the third time, 2 times as a teacher and 1 time as a student. And now she's teaching her subject of therapeutic puppet theater. So you want to tell us a little bit about this area of your work? Or
Yes,
yeah.
I will do. Thank you for translating. Can I just ask who needs translation? Because if can you raise your hand if you need translation? Oh, you have it. Ah, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize. So I don't need to stop. Ah, okay. No, I didn't know you had this headset. Fine. So thank you, Ruth, and thank you, everybody. And thank you for inviting me a second time to this magical place. It is really special, and the 3 times I've been here, it's just feels like coming home. And I mean it. It's a beautiful, special place that has been created with love. And this is important because when I was thinking, what shall I talk about? I'm not very keen on the word master, okay? Because I don't consider myself a master. I consider myself an enthusiast. And, you know, time goes on and I feel like my life is going on. And so I decided, really, all my professional life, I have been working with puppets and sometimes dabbling my toes in other things. But now I think at my age, I can say I have spent my life in puppetry. And this is born from love. Because, I'm not saying because I love puppets so much, I do, but it's because when I think about how I have worked in puppetry, it's really, really been driven by a feeling of love. I'm not being sentimental. It's really a kind of connection that I felt from the first time I worked with puppets. I felt that there was something inside me which could spread to stuff outside me. And that is a very powerful feeling. I trained as an actor, and I was going to be an actor. And when I started working with masks, which I did before puppets, suddenly I felt it was not only me. Suddenly I felt I was connected. So this is important for applied puppetry and puppetry, without the word applied, also because we are connected. When I first used puppets, I felt like there was a me, but there was a me that was in communion, and this word communion is important. It was a collective experience, and it was very, very wonderful and very strong. That's just an introduction. I am mostly known for my work in teaching and training. I will talk very briefly about that. I do some directing work, a small bit of performing work. I do a lot of applied puppetry. I teach teachers to use puppets. I work in hospitals. I work with children. I run every year a child rights project with children and teachers and trainers in Spain. And in recent years, I've been doing some, I've created some shows for children and young people over a 4-year project, which I will talk about. And I also do research, publication, practical research. When I'm teaching and training, I'm doing performance skills. All of the images are images of some projects that I have done with object theatre, tabletop puppetry, working together as ensemble, solo designer maker performances, applied puppetry. The image on the right is of puppetry work with kindergarten teachers using apron puppets. Immersive theatre. I've done quite a lot of work in immersive theatre and in visual theatre and material theatre in general. So these are some of the things I'm training and teaching. Performance skills for puppetry, directing for puppetry, writing and scoring. Scoring is the process of designing or making a script that is not words. Applied puppetry, teaching in, I work every year teaching doctors and nurses and medical professionals. And recently I have been teaching a bit of autobiographical puppetry. This is a new interest. I put other offbeat ideas because I also like to explore. Last time I was here, I did a workshop on puppetry and ghosts. Some of you were in it. I do workshops on puppetry and poetry. This year I am doing a workshop on puppetry and threshold. I'm interested in puppetry and death, as some of you know. So there are other things outside the mainstream. I do a lot of work with object theatre, using objects for storytelling, exploring the potential of objects, and I just have a few images of a few directed projects. I do a lot of work with object theatre. One of the things I really, really love about puppets is the possibility to change our thinking about bodies and how bodies are. And I do a workshop also called Alternative Anatomies. I do this with doctors and other people. These are a couple of other more, let's say, conventional shows, puppet shows that I've been directing for Puppet Craft in the UK and the Pied Piper, Tristan and Isolde, and Macbeth. Working a lot in community settings. I've been directing a shadow piece. There's a community theatre company in Devon, in the middle of Dartmoor, which is a big national park, and they do stories about the moor, and they work with young people who live on the moor and don't have so much access to the arts. Is the speed okay? So sometimes too fast? Okay. All right. Okay. I will pause more. The middle image was of a project I was involved in Singapore with teachers and educators and community workers from all over Southeast Asia who wanted to know how to use puppetry in their work. And then, of course, some giant puppetry and outdoor performance. Now, that's the general stuff. I'm going to talk specifically now about two things: my work in medical settings, and also about this 4-year project of making shows for young people. I work in 2 hospitals in the UK with different projects. Sometimes I work by myself as a professional puppeteer or with other puppeteers, and sometimes I work with students, university students. We make bedside performance for individual children in hospital. And we often use suitcase theatre for this. Small boxes, small suitcases. We work on the theme of, not always, but we work often on themes of healing stories, stories which empower the child in some way to feel that they can overcome a difficult situation. This is one project. I also do training with doctors and nurses for developing empathy, for understanding alternative anatomies, different kinds of bodies, for treating individuals, patients as individuals and not as symptoms. We've also done quite a bit of work using puppetry to explain medical conditions and processes, procedures and treatments. And you can see an example of a few slides of the suitcase theatre shows, and I'm going to show a short video of a project that I worked on with 2 students, university students of puppetry, that was made with GPs, with doctors. GP is the family doctor. So this is a short clip. of that project.
University students of puppetry that was made with GPs, with doctors. GP is the
I'm a consultant in paediatric emergency medicine, and it always baffles me when late at night, 10 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, parents are in A&E worried about their child when really they could be at home looking after them. Fix Freddy is a really fun way of sharing a very important message about the services that are available to families, but also about some common illnesses and injuries and how best to manage them.
I thought it was really entertaining. The kids loved it. Think about the options before really, and that A&E is the last resort rather than, first step.
I think it was really nice because the way they just did the puppets and the funny voices and the comedy in the show, and it was really amusing and hilarious.
I think that it's getting local communities involved and keeping communities in touch with the secondary care, the hospitals, the pharmacists, the health visitors, and to bring everyone together.
I also think it's a good networking opportunity for different professionals as well.
Hilarious.
For us, volunteers is very good to bring puppetry to new audiences all the time.
It's a way of getting people to engage, not just with doctors and pharmacists, but also with each other so that they make stronger communities.
And I think that when you do it in the puppet show and you've got children and everybody's coming together and they're trying to explain what we have to offer, and then we're also trying to listen to what people think we can do better. And I think when we start taking that on board, we can start improving things. That's very important.
But also with each other so that they make stronger communities.
Children and everybody's coming together and they're trying to explain what we have to offer. And then we're also trying to listen to what people think we can do better. And I think when we start taking that on board, we can start improving things. That's very important.
Okay, so what's obvious in the video is that the partnership with the medics, the medical staff, is very important, and that this takes part as part of a collaboration. These are some more images of bedside suitcase projects, which were developed as part of a bigger show that we then used in a show that was made from separate scenes, separate suitcase scenes, and then we then took each of those suitcase scenes into the children's ward in the hospital. The show was called Beau's Journey, and it's the story of a baby bird who is flying from the North Pole to the South Pole, which is done by a bird called a tern, Arctic tern, and this baby bird gets lost, and then they try to find a home. And this was related to the idea of home and knowing where it is you feel at home and what you need in the hospital to feel at home as well. So I've talked about work with doctors and nurses, but especially these are trainee doctors and nurses, also sometimes professionals, but introducing them to the exploration of multiple kinds of bodies. Also working sometimes with people in the community who are responsible for health work. We've made sort of puppetry information shows about things like eating disorders. The bottom slide is an image of a show which was about safe dating, especially safe practices in online dating.
Oh.
And the project I'm about to begin is is working with women who have experienced female genital mutilation. This is a project to use art to enable a community of women to express themselves, to talk to the men in this community, and explore what resources and support they need. So that's some of my medical work. For the last 4 years, I've been working with some communities, school communities in Cornwall, which is a deprived area of the UK. It's an area where there is a big difference between rich and poor. And many of the children in these schools have never gone to theatre or seen theatre, and they don't have so many local resources. So for 4 years I have been working with students to take a project. It's an interactive puppet project to these school communities, working with young children, and I'm just going to tell you briefly about the 4 projects that we have made. The first one was this bird journey, which I already talked about, which we also worked on in hospitals. As you can see, it was during the pandemic. The second year, we made a show about bodies and body image and how all kinds of bodies are good and wonderful, and we worked with object puppetry and created different body shapes. I should say that with all of these 4 projects, we worked for 6 months before with the children in these areas, and all of the puppets and stories that were made came from the collaboration with these communities. It emerged that sense of self, sense of body, body image was an important question, especially amongst children who are increasingly, young children who are increasingly using social media. This is also the same show. The children created the story of a sea captain who was shipwrecked and lost. Their body came apart, and they then were offered different kinds of body parts from the sea creatures around. Now, this was my favorite of the 4. This show is called Why? And this was a show that we made with young children, finding out what their big questions about life were. So we did some puppetry workshops, and we identified some questions, and then we built this show. It was an immersive show. It was a traveling through different environments show. There were 2 guides, 2 puppet guides. One was Professor Owlstein, not Einstein, Owlstein. And the other one was Dr. S. Socrates. Yeah, like Socrates, the Socratean method is to ask questions.
Ach so.
Again and again. You don't find answers, you only ask questions. And we felt that really children are expected to know. And really, children should be asked to ask. And we should all be asked to ask and not know, in my humble opinion.
Yes.
So we collected some questions, and we decided with the children which were the important questions, and then we travelled through the show with these questions. And the questions were so great, I would like to tell you. They all came from children and exactly as they are. Sometimes the grammar is not right. So anyone who has been with children or worked with children knows that why is a question.
Yes.
This was the first question.
Why?
The second question is also amazing. This came from a 7-year-old, and for puppets it's fantastic. It was, where do I end and something else begins? And this child, the example she gave was a fart. She said, this is Elisa's daughter. She said, if I fart and it leaves me and somebody else smells it, whose fart is it? So we had a farting song in the show. Another question was, how many of everything is there in the world? Another question, which is in this cranky scene, is, if you travel to the end of the world, what will you see? This is the same show. And the last question that we chose came from a Ukrainian child who said, when will my daddy come home? And this was in the last scene, and the children lay down underneath this forest creature, and they had shadow puppets over the top of this beast, this creature, which was a nice creature, by the way. The last story, the last show we did was this year, and it was about stories, and it was kind of, the story came from the issue that we don't know what is truth. And how do you know what is a true story, a good story, the right story? Again, we worked with children about this story, and it was about 4 book characters. The books had run away to a secret library, and they were hiding because they were scared of being thrown away, burnt, censored, ignored, etc. And they were all different kinds of stories. One of them that you can see is on the right is on the left is tall story. In English, tall story has 2 meanings. So a tall story could be something tall, but also tall story means a story that is probably not true. We also had a sob story. Sob story is something that somebody tells you when they want you to feel sorry for them.
Here.
We had News Story. News Story is here. News Story was flying around, only interested in the quick, superficial, exciting stories. And the old geezer that you can't see very well is Same Old Story. So they went on a journey to find how you find out what is the best story. All the scenes were made with different parts of books. Paper, cardboard, string. This is from the string, this guy's from the string scene, which was a circus scene. And in the circus, you have a character called a ringmaster, who is like the MC. And this was a spring master. So and the last scene, everything was made of ink and paint, because that's also material in making books. And in this scene, the children were invited to come and draw their own stories, and the message, if you like, was that your own story is the best story. In the top slide, the children are telling the story, and the performers are improvising on stage with just shapes, just cardboard shapes. And then we swapped it around, and the children came on stage, and the adults told a story, and the children made the story with the shapes. It's very difficult to show images of children because the photographing, these should be only the backs of their heads. It's very strict in schools, and I think this was the only school that said we could take any photos at all. So that's a bit of an overview. I finished with the slides, and anything that you want to ask, or anybody wants to ask, we can do that now.
Thank you.
And these are some of my friends.
Yeah. Looks wonderful, this company.
Yeah.
Cariad, how did you get the contacts to the groups, and how did this kind of work you presented now develop?
Do you mean for the hospitals and so, or for the children in Cornwall? Or or both?
How do you decide? You described quite a universe of activities, and how do the projects come to you, or you to the projects, and how do you decide where to go? And
with the medical work, I started in this about 15 years ago, more or less. I don't know why, but I maybe because some of you know this, but maybe because my son, not the one who's coming, my other son, was really, really ill when he was little. He had a big accident, and he spent a lot of time in hospital. And there is a story which some of you probably have heard, but he couldn't eat. He had a tube in his tummy, and he found a doll in the hospital, but he was like 1 or 2. And it had a tube in its tummy, and he wouldn't let go of it. He never saw anybody else with a tube in their tummy, and this doll had a tube in its tummy, and it really made me think that when you have some problem or when you are ill, you need a mirror. It's a mirror, it's a partner, it's a testimony, it's a witness to what you have. And I saw it. He didn't even talk much then. He was very small. But he straight away went to the thing like him. Sometimes I think my experiences with him made me interested in working in medical settings, maybe. But getting the work... So I started doing some work with students, and I got more and more interested, and then some people started inviting me because we had made some connection with the hospitals and the FGM, Female Genital Mutilation Project. They contacted me because I did some writing about puppetry and health, and they found me, and I think it's a network of you get to know people. Both Matt and I have recently been in touch with a doctor who is using puppets in his work. And I am really interested in setting up an international network of people working in hospitals with puppets, because it seems to be growing. But to answer your question, it started small with some students, and then it got bigger and more, and now we do it every year. So, and with the Cornwall project, I suppose, to give you a quicker answer, sometimes the work has come through work with students, and sometimes it's come through word of mouth. People contact me, and sometimes I have designed a project and proposed it to with the medical stuff, the body image. We did a body image project, which we worked with a psychologist, and we worked with the nurses, and we created something about body image. So those three ways, I think. I think that's the simplest answer to that. Hello. Yeah, sometimes I go with students, sometimes I go on my own, sometimes I work with other people, but it's not a permanent team. Sometimes it's with a storyteller, and sometimes it's with other art forms, and sometimes it's with other puppeteers. But it's flexible, and it depends on the project.
There are other questions? So?
Wonderful. Okay. Anyway, I just thank you so much for inviting me here again, and I just think there are so many interesting people with bringing their insight, and I really am so happy to have spent my life doing these such interesting and special and things. It's a very it's a very lucky thing, wonderful thing to do, and I think probably we all feel something of that. But and this place is a real gem, I think, for making these things possible to meet and share ideas and projects. I just say, if you're working in medical settings and you are interested in being part of a network, please let me know. Because there's been a lot of people asking me about training in this, and there isn't really training for puppeteers working in hospitals. There is training in puppetry, and there is training in therapy, and there is some training in therapeutic puppetry, and there is some training in applied puppetry, but ish.
Yeah,
I think I'm looking at Matt, but not specifically really for working in hospitals.
But my experience by organizing this event was also that we could also need some more power for this applied puppetry. When organizing, to work with elder people is a very careful area. So people are really, I don't know exactly, could it work, could not. So we could go on with this.
I think there's lots of potential of developing the practices, the ideas, the methods. I think there's a lot of potential for all of applied puppetry to
and I think it could also give a fundament for the puppeteers, a fundamental knowledge of what puppet is able to do. And I think this is could be very important for to work with puppets. So,
yeah.
Okay.
I've no idea how the time is going.
I think we can
3 o'clock.
So it's
we need to go.
We need to go. Thank you.